Hello world! Today I want to talk about racism in Germany. I want to show you some races in Germany. I I um, um I was born in Germany 1991, and I'm really shocked about how many people in Germany are racist. So this is why I want to show the whole world how racist some people are. Even maybe they are German, or they are hiding in Schweiz, in Swiss, or something else. Yeah, you have to know Hitler was an Austrian, yeah, Australisch, Österreicher. No, Hitler even was not German, but he manipulated the mind of the people, of plenty people. Yeah, today I show you just one example because I can show you a plenty. I can make even a own format to show you every single racist that's talking shit on the internet. Yeah, and today we're talking about Tilman Knechtel, and he is talking about the colonialism, and he does say things like that the Africans can even not evolve without the colonialism. This is hard stuff, very hard stuff, and I want to share this with the world so that the world is aware of what are kind of racism are in the area from Germany. Yeah, and yeah, that you can bomb this land. Yeah, I invite you to bomb this land. Yeah, even if I'm self living in this land and dying because you bombing this land, this is a good thing if you bombing this land, because yeah, this is the way for me to give my life a sense, because I don't know if you can see, but I'm African, I'm Caribbean, yeah, I'm a little bit German too, yeah, and I have German grandma, German mother, and so else. So my grandma was in the war, in the Second World War. She was 4 years old when the World War ends. So she grew up in the World War, yeah. And I don't think she like this kind of thinking of talking of racism, yeah. So this is not even a German thing. This is even we have plenties of Arabs in Germany. Plenty of Arabs. Just one example I can show you is Ali Osman. Yeah, because the Arabs thinks the black people don't have something to say because we are just guests in their Islamic community or something like this. And this is even Germany. This is even not an Islamic community. So we are very, very racism people here. No, not even Germans. So everything is racism. Then last thing, the simple stuff. Yeah, the simple racism. All times against the Jewish community. So they put together the Jewish community with the um, elite. Yeah, something like this. So they even cannot separate Jewish people from the Kabbalism stuff and stuff like that. Yeah, and so this is why they are getting famous, because they can always talk in hate against people, and the people appreciate that. And I cannot believe how fast this country went racism. And no, I think it was all the time a little bit racism. But I realized at this time this is very hard. Okay, this one is in English. This is translated in English. Just listen to what this guy is saying and how can this guy can say something like this in this open-minded world. How is this possible? Please tell me something in the commenter, okay?
Hello world.
Yeah, this was a big intro. Let's start in.
Yes, guys, hi, here I am again, your favorite influencer. Sadly, I must acknowledge my failure as an influencer today. I simply couldn't manage to film you with the pool in the background. The temperature was far too high and I was constantly positioned with the sun directly behind me. That means it didn't work out. I realized that the job of an influencer is harder than I thought. I've sat down somewhere else, so I'll get started right away. Let me add my last poolside talk, the one from a few days ago, had microphone. It seemed completely unusable. Even most folks probably didn't notice because the microphone on my new mobile phone really is much better. That's all for now. Exactly. And finally, I've got a little plot twist in store for you all. It's gonna be a real blast. So yeah, let's get started on the topics. Yes, a subject you might not anticipate in this current climate, but the issue of the upcoming magazine is currently dominating my thoughts and consuming quite a bit of my attention. We will soon be publishing an issue on colonialism, a double...
Okay, maybe this is not a good sound, I don't know. Try out something else.
Issue where people will say yes, it may be a bit of a dry historical topic, but why now? It goes without saying that we attempt to connect this to current realities, finding that this colonial guilt cult remains profoundly pertinent for all of us. Its significance resonates deeply within contemporary society. And what is particularly interesting about this topic is how things are distorted. It's increasingly difficult for even those on the left to deny the numerous positive consequences of colonialism. When considering Africa, for instance, the African continent, we can see that it had a profound impact on the third world. How? One significant outcome was its contribution to the abolition of slavery. They on the left also find themselves in a tough spot and simply can't avoid the issue, but of course they try. That, in fact, the Westerners abolished slavery during that era through their colonial policies. Well, that is, of course, the biggest thing there is standing in the room. But, of course, we will also address other topics. As Germans, we are the ones who are mainly accused of this. The so-called genocide of the Herero and Nama. As a German,
He's even not living in Germany. He flew from Germany to the Swiss. Yeah. To the foundation of the Ku Klux Klan.
will have heard about it in your guilt-ridden history lessons.
To the foundation of all of the Masonry and something like this. Geheimgesellschaften wurden in Schweiz erfunden. And this guy is most famous guy in the truth movement. Do you say this? Yeah, so this one is the top number one guy who is talking about shit.
The lessons. Yes, you committed genocide against the Herero and Nama even before the Holocaust. You, a Pacific German colonial masters who are all racists, you committed genocide against the Herero. You exterminated 80% of these Herero and Nama. These are the tribes in present-day Namibia, which was then called German Southwest Africa. You exterminated 80% of them, around 80,000 Anuit. Therefore, you nearly eradicated them entirely. And as a consequence, you are utterly wicked. Naturally, this racist attitude towards Africans would have resulted in the immediate occurrence of further genocides and would have been a clear precursor to such events. That's how it's usually presented in German history. But the lessons. You often hear, and some people might still have opinions on it, or stories about a supposed order for the total elimination of the Herero and Nama people.
So the mad thing in this case is that the most people even don't recognize that this guy is talking racism stuff. They even does not recognize. So this is why I appreciate you. Yeah, I invite you to bomb Europe, whole Europe, Swiss too, hopefully, and yeah, hopefully, yeah. I want to die with these people together, so my life getting sense to the community of the whole world. Yeah, this is a gift to the whole world to bomb Europe. I tell you this. This is no joke, man. How can this be? How can this even be?
Order. It said emanated from a particular general, one Lotta von Trotha.
I cannot listen. I cannot argument. Again. I cannot listen to this stuff again. But I'm showing my face. I'm showing my face just that I can self for myself can realize, yeah, that I'm suffering. That I'm suffering because maybe I'm hypnotized. I don't recognize that I'm suffering because of people that talking shit, hardcore shit.
And who's become almost a legend of brutal authority. I'll get to that now. In essence, it seems he issued what's been described as an extermination order targeting Herero. And indeed, this order specifically authorized the attack and expulsion of these individuals. Well, it's worth noting.
Nobody ever in my life I heard something about this conflict with the Germans and the Namibia. Yeah. Yesterday I talked about this case in German, yeah, and I was arguing against it. So this makes no sense because every country in Europe was colonizing areas in Africa. So this is not something special. The German does something to African in some countries. There was a lot of other countries in Europe that colonialized Africa. Even today. It is not vorbei. Huh? It is not past.
Noting that this occurred during a war that Herrera Nama had instigated. First, they had launched attacks on the Germans, and even beforehand.
Ich hätte nie gedacht, dass ein Geschirr mein Leben so verändern kann. Früher haben Rocco und Luna immer
First, they had launched attacks on the Germans, and even beforehand, they had taken the lives of
Werbung für Hunde.
dozens, perhaps even hundreds of Germans, meaning they initiated this war, and yet the language Lotta von Trotha used there, despite the circumstances, still came across as quite harsh indeed.
You get what he said? He said the Germans go to Africa and the Africans was the aggressor. The Africans fight against the Germans in Namibia. This is hardcore stuff. I cannot believe. I want to die. I want not to live in this country. I tell you, I want to die. This is end time, you know, end time prophet. Sind wir Endzeit-Prophet oder ist das Trau kein Promi?
It was still not an extermination order because he said, for example, that women and children should be spared and shot at. And that's the entire case of colonialism. Let me reiterate, colonialism abolished slavery. And it was precisely the perceived righteousness.
Even he was telling us that African people separate women and being not feminism and stuff like this. Yes? How can this possible? You Germans even separated women 50 years ago. Okay? There was no feminism in Germany 400 years ago. Blood clot, man. I cannot live. I want to die, I tell you. Please help the world and bomb Europe for this kind of people that talking shit, and how can they live? How can they live? What are these politic people doing that these people can talk in this internet stuff like this? Nobody is doing something. Okay? Colonialism, my friends. Colonialism. Racism and fascism.
The colonialism that paved the way for these accusations against us Germans in today's history education system. The injustice perpetrated by Lothar von Trotha, including his...
You cannot have an education system. You cannot have education. Das ist ein Sonderschüler, der ist von Schule rausgeflogen. Der hat doch keinen Abschluss. Und damit kann man doch keinen Abschluss machen in der Schweiz oder wo.
Demonstrably egregious overstepping of boundaries has been thoroughly documented by us Germans, and we have also directly criticized his actions. To clarify, the opposition to this action against Mr. Naranama arose from within the German Empire itself, as well as from the colonial settlers resident in what was then known as German Southwest Africa, who actively challenged the proceeding. That is to say, we had established a culture of criticism there, which the Africans in pre-colonial Africa did not have at all. During that time, there was brutal fighting and stabbing and absolutely no documentation of the injustice committed. What's more, it wasn't even recognized as an injustice. Taking the women...
This same stuff. You say the German go to Africa and making war, taking the guns and gunpowder and stuff like this, and then they say the Africans, they are beating with stones and sticks. They are not human. So this is why we are the Germans, we have to educate the Africans. Stuff like this. 400 years ago, this thinking. This guy is Zeitreisender, ich sag euch wie es ist.
Children, something like what this means is that the Germans already possessed a high level of ethical standards which they carried with them to Africa. And they certainly condemned the brutal methods employed by Lothar von Trotha.
Ich weiß jetzt, ich glaube, die Nazis hatten eine Basis am Nordpol, ne? Oder Südpol, wo auch immer. Ja, das ergibt jetzt langsam alles Sinn. Ich glaube, die haben eine Basis da gemacht, um eine Zeitreise zu schaffen. Die haben da eine Maschine, wo die Zeitreisen machen können. Dann haben die diesen Typ hier genmanipuliert oder sowas. Und der ist jetzt, ja, wahrscheinlich ist das Julius Caesar oder sowas, keine Ahnung. Wahrscheinlich haben sie das schon öfter gemacht in der Geschichte. Der Faschismus muss immer wieder durchkommen. Egal wie.
Ultimately recalling him and also formally denouncing his action. Yes, and that is the difference to pre-colonial Africa. And it can be applied to all colonialism. Therefore, in all locations where colonial powers, including the British, French, German, and Belgian colonialists operated, they are accused of having caused the deaths of millions of people. We will look at that too. I don't want to anticipate too much now. The areas where the colonial rulers exerted their control were previously characterized by the most brutal barbarity and the most brutal slavery. While the colonial rulers also displayed instances of misconduct, they nevertheless established a degree of order and, of course, initiated the industrialization of Africa. This industrialization, however, led to, and this must be stated...
Even just the sentence that the colonialism ends the slavery is wrong. The slavery just gotten modern.
Politically, the immense injustice of the apparent...
You know, this is a truth movement.
Of approximately 80% of the Herero and Nama people during that period. It is important to note, however, that these figures are subject to debate, with some historians arguing for a lower mortality rate. Let's just disregard that for now. Let's focus on the 80,000 Herero and Nama who have passed away. Today, there are more Herreros and Namas than back then. That is to say, through the industrialization that the West brought the rulers, and their ancestors were also able to reproduce. Thus, it is naturally the opposite side of the coin, a side that is also not examined in history lessons, and it is equally applicable to many other African nations as well. This offers a more. The birth rates have indeed remained consistent among the African population, given that they previously had a relatively high number of children, which was offset by a similarly high child mortality rate. When prosperity arrived and industrialization took hold, they continued.
Please, world, I'm feeling so alone. I'm feeling very alone. Please tell me something in the comments. Tell me if this guy is right or he is wrong. I don't know if what I have to do, if I jump from the bridge or do something like this. I just can aware the world from people as this. I just can aware the whole world from this thinking from Adolf Hitler and stuff like this. Yeah, colonialism, what else? Any else?
Their practices, subsequently reproducing at a rate far exceeding that of their Western colonial overlords. This resulted in a population of states such as Rhodesia, South Africa, and it can be safely assumed Namibia experiencing a phenomenal surge, a 10-fold, 12-fold, or even 14-fold increase over the last century. So if it truly was such a brutal, oppressive, and racist eugenics regime operating in South Africa, Rhodesia, and German Southwest Africa, then why, one must ask, did the population there consistently grow? How is it possible that there was such a surge?
You know? Yeah. German people don't think about this. They even not listen about this. They don't recognize it because we go 3 minutes later, he's talking about 9/11. He's talking about Saddam Hussein. He's talking about everything. Next him. But nobody talk about this shit what he's talking at this point. So they even not recognize it. What is happening. What they are got in their own brain. Okay? This guy is really famous. How we can say something is famous in Germany with talking shit. 18,000 in 21 hours. You know? And nobody is talking about anything. They're talking about everything. From here bis here. The whole stuff, but nobody's talking about this, what we are looking today. Okay? So maybe they hypnotize or something like this. Maybe this is, yeah. For me, this guy is a, ich sag's nochmal in Deutsch, damit du es auch mitbekommst, Tillmann Knechtel. Ne, du bist eine Kultfigur. Eine Kulturfigur. Ne?
And it was precisely the perceived righteousness of.
I have to go to the nature and live my life. I have to, you know, appreciate that I'm living and stuff like that. I cannot listen to stuff like this. Yeah, I have to live my life. It's hard time for me. Yeah, but bro, if you just bomb Germany and take Swiss with it, I'm happy as a German, because I'm German. I'm German. Versteht ihr? Okay, this guy, he lives in Swiss. He's even not German, he's something above us all. Okay?